I still wouldn't feel like my investigation is complete until I find out the why. We're dealing with people who truly made probably the worst mistake of their life.
Our guest today is Jonathan Rollins. Jonathan, I want to thank you for being a guest. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me. Well, to start, currently right now, I'm in the role of a district loss prevention manager for an armored truck company. And right now, it's a dream job for me. It's where I show myself being here. There's recently started off in the Marine Corps. And once I got out of the Marine Corps, like most military guys, I went back to school. I used my post-9/11 GI Bill. And like most guys, I went to school for criminal justice. Computer security and forensics was my my undergrad, well, my minor from undergrad. And I really wanted to be into the cybercrime. I was into computers, and I thought it was a good combination because the criminal side always had my attention. I love the investigations. But during the process, loss prevention just fell into my lap. I met a district loss prevention manager for Sears, and I interviewed for a loss prevention manager position that they had, and I fell in love with it. Sears loss prevention exposed me to internal theft, external theft, as well as, trying to prevent retail shrink. And with that, after I accomplished what I needed to accomplish in that role, I moved on to Lowe's home improvement store. And that job kind of had me more focused on safety and the operational side of loss prevention. So I think I got the best of both worlds before I finished my my MBA, and I interviewed for the position that I am now as a district loss prevention manager on the armored truck. I knew it was going to be a challenge, and so far it definitely has held up to it. So I'm excited about it, and I'm enjoying it, enjoying the position that I'm in so far.
One thing I would say is you got to enjoy your work, and it sounds like you definitely are doing that. You've stayed in that field. I have to ask, you recently received an MBA, and how do you see the MBA helping or assisting with your career in loss prevention and security as a whole?
Well, I think it was a good blend. The criminal justice undergrad obviously helped out with the law side, the law enforcement, the investigation side. And I think the MBA was just a complement to it. Knowing that I'm working for corporations and businesses, it gives me an opportunity to be able to speak their language, to understand their needs, their goals, and their processes, if you will. Gives me more of the financial side and the business side, the business aspect I need to be able to maneuver and just get along and go about my day in the corporate world.
I don't disagree with that at all. I have recently read a book, and it's talking about the business world and how there are various individuals within an organization. And you have, I think they call it the everyday users, managers, and then executives. And the premise is that each one of those groups speaks a different language. And so they refer to it as Spanish and Russian, and we'll call it English. And how to really be effective in a career within an organization, you must be able to speak fluently all three languages. So I think your mindset was spot on and set you up for a lot of future growth as well, because now you're not just a, in quotes, security guy, you're someone that can speak the language of any one of these groups, even as high up to the C-suite. Would you recommend to a younger person who's possibly listening to the show, trying to figure out what their career looks like, maybe even someone coming out of the military and they know they have a transition coming, they know they have a GI Bill waiting for them to assist with their education, would you recommend them focusing on cybersecurity as a degree program?
It certainly wouldn't be a bad thing to do. Like you said, that's an up and coming field. I wouldn't even say up and coming. That's the prime real estate at this point when it comes to the job market. So my highest recommendation to anybody transitioning from the military is to if you're waiting till you get out to go to school, it's already I'm not going to say too late. You're already behind the curve. What I didn't mention was I actually had an associate's degree before I exited the Marine Corps because I had someone else that got me to understand that you need to start now. I know they have a tuition assistance program where you don't even have to touch your GI Bill before you transition, before you get out. So use it as free money. Get started early, and make sure you take as many. I know in the Marine Corps we call them MCIs, where we took pretty much Marine Corps related courses, and they gave us college credit for it, most of those courses, and those count towards your electives. That helped me greatly into getting an associate's degree, and I was halfway done with my undergrad before I even decided to make that step. So my advice is for them to start before they decide to make that transition. Start now.
This is a personal question, but there are a lot of veterans who really struggle with the transition from military life to civilian life, specifically when it comes to finding a career. Did you have struggles? Is probably the first question. And then second, what would you tell some guys that are trying to make that transition to make it more effective?
Well, I did have struggles, and the military is a structured environment, and I think that was the hardest challenge for me. I actually worked at a juvenile detention facility, which is the most unstructured environment you can probably ever work at. But it was just trying to find my right fitting, what I really wanted to do with myself. No one grows up saying, I want to be a loss prevention manager. This job in this field is very small and very specialized. So it just I got lucky, if you will. My calling came to me. And so I guess to answer your second question, just keep with it. Know what you want to do. Have a plan and try to stick to it. There's going to be things that you just can't plan for and you can't predict, but just find a way to continue to overcome. You have resources that's available to you with the VA and just your peers, your network, your military family, that's all there for you. So make sure you understand all your resources and utilize them to your advantage. Even with the plan, we all know that things are going to happen and come up, but it's just moving through them and keep pushing towards your goal.
I personally think one of the most important things for us to realize as human beings is we're not the only one going through whatever we're going through. And I love how you just mentioned that the VA has some resources, but even talk to your peers, those who have done it before. What you're going to find is you are not alone. Most everyone has probably endured the same exact struggle. And by working with others who have gone before you, it can make that transition a little easier or a little smoother for you. Jonathan, I know you to be an expert in the world of investigations. For our listeners, could you give us a few best practices that you use when you are conducting an investigation?
Some of the best practices I can give is to start with getting to know all the tools that you have, who you're dealing with, everyone that's involved, pretty much figuring out your who, what, when, where, how. That's what I kind of like to do at the beginning. I also like to kind of lay out my tools, whether it be CCTV, whatever I may have, reports, manifests, anything that I have in my disposal. I kind of like to leave no stone unturned. I like to do background checks on all suspects or employees involved, from HR files to Facebook to anything, just, talking to the managers, getting to know what's going on in their life. Because I utilize that in my interviews, getting to know them. I let them know, that I already know a lot of things about them, and I prove it to them during the interview, when I'm kind of getting to establish a behavior norm. It also helps build my credibility as well during the interview when I can already tell you, who's your the name of your mother, the name of your person closest to you, things of that nature. It assists with getting to know the person. They already feel like, hey, he already knows me. And then also take that opportunity to give them a chance to get to know who I am, and that builds, that credibility, and it gets them comfortable with talking to me.
So it sounds like you're working to build trust initially with we'll call him the suspect for right now. And you
Exactly.
have found that the best way to build the trust is to come prepared and plan. So it sounds to me that if you had to say the most important part of a successful investigation is actually the planning before anything else starts.
I, I would say that without a doubt. The planning is the most crucial part. That is your opportunity to get the upper hand. Because trust me, the suspect or the person who you're looking for already knows that you're looking for them. They're expecting you. So it makes your job a lot easier when you know who you're dealing with, what happened, who was involved, where it happened, when it happened, how it happened, and not just that, just to kind of get an idea of what's going on in that person's life. Because when I conduct an interview, my interview is only focused on why things happen, versus who, what, when, where, how. I do that on the front end.
Many people struggle with planning. We all know we should. I've always heard make your plan, then work your plan. I've always heard, you never take a trip without looking at a map and preparing your trip first. But I find in our organizational life, often we know we should plan, but we're just too busy to do that. Move into the planning again. How do you keep yourself so disciplined to not get, again in quotes, too busy to plan?
Well, when it comes to an investigation, you gotta set aside the time to do a thorough investigation. Uh, when you take the time out to sit here and plan an investigation and do your research and be thorough, your interviews tend to be a lot easier. If I had, let's just say I had CCTV video of a person, which is rare, actually concealing money or whatever it may be, that's pretty much an open and shut case, right? I still wouldn't feel like my investigation is complete until I find out the why. Because as a loss prevention manager, the why is the most important thing. Why did this person decide, a 10-year employee, for example, decide to take $30,000? Was it financial? Did he feel as though we weren't paying him enough? And not just that, how? How did he get it out? How can I prevent this from happening again? And sometimes preventing this from happening again may be, hey, the company's not paying their employees enough. Everybody, wants to take money for whatever reason it may be. It all goes back into finding the why.
I just want to remind everybody that when we plan, we ultimately save a lot of time on the back end. I hear you saying that your planning, although it takes a little time up front, it opens up trust in the interview and ultimately gets you to the why and the result you hope to get to much quicker. And it's all due to the upfront planning.
Right.
So you've now planned. You're now going into the interview. Can you walk me through a process of what your interview looks like so I can understand it from start to finish?
Okay. Well, first, it's establishing a behavior norm. Once I figure out how they tell the truth, or ask them questions that I know that they know the answer to, and they know I already know the answer to, using type of behavior analysis and things like that. There's certain methods that are out there, but establishing a behavior norm is very important. And I moved to developing a rapport. From that, I love to kind of give an opportunity for me to explain who I am, what I do, and also explain the simpleness of my job. The tools that are at my disposal, that allows me to complete these investigations on the front end. And I even let them know, already kind of setting up, if you will, the mindset that, hey, this investigation is already done. This is the last piece to it. And then I pretty much, in essence, I start to rationalize with my research and my planning thoughts of why they may have done such a thing. And really, I put about 1 to 5 rationalizations that make sense, where there may be financial, impulse, opportunity, whatever it may be. And I kind of create a story, rationale, that I can see if they're accepting. If they're accepting it, I'm going to stay with it. In other words, I'm building almost an excuse or, an out for them in the means of understanding or trying to just focus on, again, the why. And from that point, once I see that they're accepting of it, it pretty much turns into, an assumptive question, if you will. Never directly accuse. It's almost as if I'm trying to, explain to them that I already know what happened, which most of the times I truly do, but sometimes I don't. And I might ask, hey, so, I know that financial may be an issue in your life as well. Is that why, I want to speak with you today, or is that why, you decided to, take whatever it may be, and and monitor a response, monitor the body language, and and if they didn't accept it, then I'll just kind of start all over again with a new rationalization. And once I can rationalize with them, and once they're accepting to it, I again try to ease my way back into another assumptive question. And once they accept it, I support their mission, whatever it may be, and then I go into more of a preventative mode where I'm trying to figure out ways to prevent this from happening, and then I go into a more of a salesman role where I attempt to see what I can recover at that point, whatever it may be, and from there, I allow them to explain themselves via a written statement, and then at that point, we decide what we want to do as an employer.
Maybe not so many of our listeners, because our listeners are definitely professionals, but I think some get confused with the difference between an interview and an interrogation.
Right.
What do you see as the difference and effectiveness of the two within an organization?
Within an organization, let's just say the corporate realm, technically it's a gray line. They're one and the same, but we use the term interview. Okay, so when we conduct an interview, we're trying to elicit the truth. What we're trying to do is we have reason, evidence, whatever it may be for the person that we want to speak to. Some interviews are just fact-finding interviews, where I'm trying to eliminate some people, see how they respond to certain questions. And then other interviews are what you may consider an interrogation, or ones that I know what happened and I know you're my guy or girl. And, at this point, I use the method that we just spoke about, where I attempt to rationalize and just focus on the why. Not the, I know everything, and you have to get them to believe that you know everything. And that's not what we're here for. We're just here as an employer to understand, what went wrong. We don't hire felons. We don't hire bad people. When we hired you, everything on your background said you were a good person, and we're sure that you still are, but what happened? Why?
Some could picture this as someone pounding their fist and saying, "You did this," and it's a little more accusational. You tend to take more of an empathetic role, creating a story, creating a rationale. So, what role does empathy play within a successful interview?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I said. We're not dealing with, felons or murderers or anyone like that in the corporate world. We're dealing with people who truly made probably the worst mistake of their life. So, I found that you get, I guess you can say I find that I just get more with being empathetic. I'm not sure of any investigator, at least in the corporate world, that take that approach. I think that approach will lead more to a shutdown because now they're afraid of you. What's the saying? Is that you get more with honey than you would with
Vinegar.
vinegar or
Yep.
something of that nature? Yeah. So, and that is the case. Empathy, figuring out why, because it was a reason, it was something going on in their life, or it could have just been impulsive. Which still, if the reason is greed, then it's greed. It's just empathy is crucial, and you won't get a rationalization, or you wouldn't get a why if they don't think that you care to even to listen, if you care to understand.
In that caring, it builds a little bit of trust. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree. It's all about building trust. You start off attempting to, build that trust, and we all understand that, that this was not the right decision to be made. But at this point, we're at a crossroads. You have employee A, employee B. Getting them to understand this is the option. Employee A does this, employee B does that, and getting them to understand that, hey, we're here to deal with this today. It's today's the day when we got to put this behind us.
In organizations, you mentioned we're really not dealing with felons per se. Most of the time, we're dealing with individuals that really made a bad decision for one reason or another. Maybe they needed rent. Maybe there was a medical condition, this medical bill piling up on them. There's always a rationale, and it does not make what they did right, but there is a rationale behind it. I guess what I'm saying is I would venture to say that a good portion of the people you interview and investigate at the core really might be good people. There's a part of the Bible that I'll take a little bit out of context because most of us know this exact saying, the truth will set you free. What's your thoughts on that? Do you see the suspects that you deal with? Do you ever see that freedom from when they finally do just let go and confess what actually happened?
I most certainly do, and it comes at that point when the words come out of their mouth that yes, I did it. Yes, I took the money. Um, that point is, and you can see the weight lift off their shoulder. It's as if they've been holding this in on their chest for so long, and they really want this to be over with because they know they're you can tell that they couldn't sleep nights before. Some you can tell that that they've been struggling with this. I had a lot of cases where depending on how quickly we moved, where I was able to get a full recovery of whatever was taken, and it was right outside in their car. I had one case where someone told me that they were trying to figure out how to bring it back. Because it doesn't take long when you're in a corporate world, or when you're at work and you realize that hey, something's missing, and they're doing an investigation. Everyone knows about it, and that only creates more anxiety. And for me, as an interviewer, the anxiety is to my advantage. So the sooner I can jump and pounce on, and get everything I need on the planning phase and get the interview going, the better it is. The easier it is to kind of judge and measure your behavior, and the easier it probably would be for me to rationalize with you as well. Because once your anxiety level is so high, it's kind of difficult for you to control your emotions or to control your body language, and even sometimes kind of control what you say. So to answer your question, it doesn't just affect them either. It affects me as the interviewer because once they finally say what I've been waiting to hear this entire time, it's a weight lifted off my shoulder. It added credibility to me. Like hey, wow, I got it. We're wrapping this up. We're on the down end. Because once I hear that, the job isn't done yet, but you're halfway there.
I can see this being a fulfillment aspect of your job because there's a side of it that Maybe you're fulfilled because, haha, I got them, but I don't think that's your approach. It sounds like you have a little bit of fulfillment that comes from seeing them get some healing from, again, being truthful and making that confession.
I, I do, and here's one of the big difference that I think is between a loss prevention investigator versus your investigator you would see with law enforcement on TV. They don't know those guys that they're arresting for the most part. They don't have the relationships that I would have with an employee. I see these employees on a day-to-day basis. You get to build those relationships, with these employees. About these employees. You know they're good people. These are people that you walk in the morning and speak to every morning. And, these are the ones that you probably have trained at some point. You get to know them. You know that they have family, kids, wives, husbands, and it's, when they make a mistake like that, it's kind of as if, the best thing for you to do is to, make this company whole again, and let's move forward.
Excellent. And I appreciate you going through all this with me. It helps me understand what it may look like during a good interview. I know you personally and know you to be a man of great integrity, with a great heart, and yet the ability to just focus on the task and do it well. And again, I thank you for walking me through this. If there's someone else listening to this podcast right now and they're wanting to improve their skills, they want to become a pro like Jonathan. Are there books or resources somewhere that you might say, hey, look into studying this and it will help you get better?
Definitely. I didn't wake up like this, and I appreciate the compliments there. But I'm still working at my craft myself. But I would definitely say Woodlander Zalowski. That was a training that I went through. WZ. That was a training that I went through from the retail side that focused on rationalization. Also, the Johnny Reed technique. That was one that I actually did with the company that I'm at now, and I kind of found a happy medium. I will say those are great resources, great courses that you can look into those programs, those courses that they offer. Awesome to at least get a baseline to understand behavior analysis, just to kind of get an idea. But I will tell any investigator, you got to find your own. Most of the time, if you want to really build trust, kind of coming in there with a piece of paper and a pen or a book, trying to read from the book, it's not going to go far. You got to kind of develop your own style. Find out what works with you, for you, and find out what you're comfortable with, and practice. I hate to say it, but in order to get better at interviewing, you got to interview. The more you do, the more comfortable you get, and it's just all about creating your own style. Now, like I said, those resources are great, and I use them, and you can kind of tell from my methods for everyone who's listening that's familiar with the Wicklander, the WZ, maybe in the Reed. I use a little mixture of them both, because sometimes it's not always one or the other may not be effective depending on who you're dealing with. So sometimes you might have to get a little bit more accusatory, just to see how they respond. So I would definitely say the WZ training and the Reed technique would be two great resources to start with.
Security Pros, just so you know, I will leave links to both of those resources in our show notes. So if you're interested in learning more, you can go to the show notes page and find the links to both of these resources. Jonathan, I am so glad you said it. It is one thing to read about something or even listen to this podcast and learn about something. It is another thing to implement it, and we must practice the craft. And I'm just going to share one of my helpful hints that's helped me over the time. I've learned that I cannot implement more than one thing at a time. I cannot develop more than one habit at a time. So my encouragement to all the security pros is figure out where you can grow, focus on one thing, change that habit, and then move to the next thing, and always be growing. And that seems to be what you're doing, Jonathan. You're always growing.
Yes.
I was going to ask if you would share one personal habit that contributes to your success. I'm going to end the show probably leading you down this path. Is your desire to continually grow and learn your key to success? Or is there something else that you would say is a habit you have that has truly led you to where you are today?
I think it's a mixture of things. I love to learn new things, and obviously I like to grow and hone this craft. And it was just, I have to say, my family. They're a good motivator for me, and I'm doing something that I like to do, and I think that keeps me pushing in the right direction. Just it's unfortunate that you have to conduct investigations and doing these things, but it's just something that I find interesting. There's never the same case. It may be one that's similar, but you're always dealing with someone different. It's always something new and exciting. The next case come along and it's just, hey, how do I figure this out? It's almost like a puzzle. If you like puzzles, 100-piece, 1,000-piece puzzles, when you put it together and it's all done and finished, there's a sense of accomplishment there. And for me to get these milestones accomplishments, it just it keeps me pushing for the next case.
Jonathan, if we have someone on the show that's listening and they would like to reach out to you, maybe to connect for networking purposes, to connect to learn from you, how can someone reach you?
They can reach me on. We can start with my email, Jonathan JONATHAN .Rollins ROLLINS 89 @gmail.com. That would be the best way. Facebook as well.
Jonathan, you mentioned that you're on Facebook, and I just want the listeners to know that I've recently started a special group within Facebook, Security Pro Insights. And my goal with that is for us to be able to connect. I know many of us do not necessarily use Facebook on a regular basis, some more than others, but I do believe Facebook is a great way to connect within this social space. So please reach out, find Security Pro Insights group, and request to be a member. I will add you, and it's a way for all of us to continue to connect and grow together. Jonathan, with that, our time has come to an end. I want to thank you again for your time and providing great feedback on what you do. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me.